Transformers: The Last Knight is again directed by Michael Bay and again stars Mark Wahlberg. So this is the 5th film in the Transformers franchise, and it's basically the same as the last movies. Bad shit's gonna happen to the Earth unless the Autobots and the human characters that you don't really care about can stop it. Now, before I get into this review, I will say that I am a fan of the first Transformers movie. I actually like that film quite a bit, but the sequels to follow have all been terrible pieces of garbage, including this film. This movie is terrible. Now, as bad as these movies have been, you can't deny that Michael Bay knows how to make a dynamic looking frame. If you pluck a frame out of the trailer or the movie and just take it out of context, you can say, wow, that movie looks pretty decent. You can also say that Michael Bay knows how to shoot action. The action in this film is entertaining in the least, especially the last part of the movie. The finale is entertaining to watch. It's a lot of fun. But after that, this movie is absolute garbage. It's terrible. To start off, the dialogue in this movie is just absolutely horrendous. It's full of this awkward, unclever Michael Bay humor. I may have laughed maybe twice in this entire movie, and not only that, it's just completely unnecessary. You don't need the humor. There are times in this movie where they're starting to get into the more serious parts of the story, if you can call it that, and the characters are starting to like put themselves out there, but most of that scene, they're bantering and bickering with this awkward humor. This just doesn't land. I just can't stand the dialogue and the humor in this movie. Now, there is so much they try to cram into this movie and into this story that, if you can call it that, the plot in this movie makes absolutely no sense. There's just so much shit going on that has no actual effect on the overall story. This movie just has no flow, no cohesive structure to this film. And the way I would describe it is everybody has that friend that tells a very long story and gets caught up in all these tangents all the time, just goes off the main story of what they're trying to tell and just never gets to the point. That's what this movie is. And along with this completely bloated and uncohesive story, you get useless characters, including the little girl that's in the trailers. I believe her name was Isabella. She has no real impact on the story whatsoever. You can literally take her out of the movie, and the movie's exactly the same. It has no impact on what the outcome of the film is. And on top of all that, this movie is way too long. This movie does not need to be 2.5 hours long. You can take out all the useless plot points and characters and take out 45 minutes of this movie and have probably a better film overall. Not a great film, but better than what we got. And don't go into this film to see a lot of Optimus Prime, or Megatron for that matter. Optimus Prime shows up at the beginning of the film, disappears for pretty much the entirety of the middle of the film, and then shows up at the end. That whole story arc that you see in the trailer of him going evil and becoming the main adversary of the film, and you know he's going to turn good by the end of the film, that lasts maybe about 15 minutes, shoved in at the end of the film. And I thought it would be awesome to have that be the main point of the film and have that be the entire movie of Optimus Prime's betrayal, and then have him be redeemed at the end. If that movie would have focused on that, I thought it would have been a pretty solid film. You would have had more emotional attachment to the story, because one of the most famous characters in this franchise is the main adversary of the film. I thought that would have been pretty cool to see. And Megatron's in this movie, sort of. I mean, he shows up halfway through the movie to gather his Decepticons and has a short action scene and then leaves. And you don't see him again until the very end of the movie for the finale. And to add it all together, he has less screen time than Optimus Prime. I would argue he only has like 5 to 7 minutes in this entire film. I'm probably like calculating that wrong, but he's in this film very little. And usually with these big budget blockbuster films, when you have returning characters and cast members, usually you hear them all, they're just phoning it in. I don't see a whole lot of that with the actors, but you know who did phone it into this movie? Michael Bay. To me, it seemed that Michael Bay didn't care enough to make a good Transformers movie. And one thing that's really apparent is the aspect ratio of this film changes a lot. There are scenes and sequences in this movie that were shot with an IMAX camera, most of them the action sequences. So you would think that most of the movie would be shot in this traditional 2:3:9 aspect ratio, and then for the action sequences, it boom blows up to the IMAX format. But it would do that in between cuts in regular dialogue scenes. Half of the time, you would see a person be shot in the traditional 2:3:9, and then the reverse shot of that was with the IMAX camera, and it didn't make any sense to me, and it blew my mind that Michael Bay would let that pass for the final cut of the film, and it just felt lazy to me. To his credit, Michael Bay can be a good filmmaker when he wants to be, with movies like The Rock, or 13 Hours, or even the first Transformers movie. I think he can be a successful and really good filmmaker when he wants to be, but to me, it felt like he didn't care how this movie was made, and like if there's any cohesiveness to the story. It just felt like lazy filmmaking to me. And I realized that anything I say in this review isn't going to affect how much money this movie is going to make. The last Transformers film, which I think is worse than this one, made $1 billion. And this movie is the same kind of mindless nonsense that that film was, and people are still going to see this movie. And if you are a fan of this franchise, and you like all the other Transformers sequels, you're going to like this film, and more power to you. That's fine. But for me, I want my movies to have a little bit more substance over flash, and I require more than just mindless fun in my movies. And I kind of get upset when movies like this make a lot of money, because ultimately it's going to lead to more of the same stuff, and this franchise is evidence of that. And if you're a movie fan like me who like films that have more to offer than just mindless action and explosions, don't go see this movie, because once these films stop making money, the studios are going to try something different, and we'll get better movies as a result. At the end of the day, this is the same movie as the last 3 Transformers films. Useless characters, horrible jokes, and complete spectacle over substance. If you're a fan of the Transformers franchise and you like all the movies up to this point, you're gonna probably like this film, but I hated this movie from start to finish. So I'm giving Transformers The Last Knight 1 out of 5 stars. So now I want to hear your thoughts. If you saw Transformers Last Night, which I recommend you don't, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. If you like this review, hit that thumbs up button for me, and be sure to check out some of my other videos. I do a lot more than just movie reviews on this channel, and if you'd like to stay up to date on all those, hit the subscribe button right there. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. God, this movie sucked.